Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Coach's Corner podcast. Here today, it is 12:07 a.m., and I am charged and ready to go, and I'm going to tell you a big reason why. DDP Yoga, I just got done doing one of my DDPY workouts, Below the Belt Classic. Just did that one not even 45 minutes ago. It kicked my butt. It was good. I feel energized, though, to do this podcast at 12 o'clock in the morning. So I want to thank my mentor in recovery, Diamond Dallas Page, on Twitter, @RealDDP, for creating a very life-changing program. I was facing surgery again on my rehabilitated knee that underwent an ACL operation back last June, and I don't want to experience that pain, that depth of a long recovery, and the depression that came along with it ever again. So I listened to Talk as Jericho on podcast 1 with Chris Jericho, who always mentioned DDP Yoga and how it helped him with a herniated disc in his back that would prohibit him from touring with Fozzy or ever wrestling in the WWE again. And however, DDPY Yoga changed his life. It changed my life too. So I started it out from the very beginning, and it broke up scar tissue in my knees and helped me with my range of motion. So I had my 10-month appointment with my surgeon. He examined my knee, and he noticed that my range of motion and my knee were looking so much better than they were 2.5 months previously, when I was looking forward to another operation for manipulation and to break up scar tissue and things like that. So, I told him it was because of DDP Yoga. So he told me that he wouldn't need another operation to do on me, and I immediately found a breakthrough. So through DDPY, I'm grateful. I found a breakthrough in my knee-hab. So head over to ddpyyoga.com today. So ddpyoga.com today to get started and change your life like it did mine. And then we want to thank our good sponsors, the official snack of the Coach's Corner podcast, Moon Cheese Snacks. Create a deliciously delicate on-the-go snack, whether you're stuck in the studio for the podcast like myself. Moon Cheese offers an amazing gluten-free, 100% real cheese source of calcium and healthy carbs in cheddar, Gouda, and my personal favorite, pepper jack. The official snack of the Coach's Corner podcast, and my good friends over at Moon Cheese want to hook you up, the listeners of the Coach's Corner podcast, up with an amazing deal by heading over to shop.mooncheese.com and pick out whatever flavor your heart desires, and then you will receive 15% off of your entire purchase by using the promo code CoachesPod. So I want to thank my good friends over at Moon Cheese for helping make this possible for all my listeners and the people in my life, the family who I introduced to Moon Cheese, who suddenly started eating my Moon Cheese. So, Moon Cheese, I'm going to need another care package here soon, but I'm going to have to hide it, okay? So if you're listening to this, please send help ASAP. SOS. I need another care package. And then last but not least, Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club sends you high-quality razor blades to your door for a few bucks a month, so you can always shave with a fresh blade. With the unbelievable rise in the price for razor blades, I decided to make the switch to Dollar Shave Club. For just under $4 a month, I get a high-quality shave with a high-quality blade. And the best part is they send it right to my front door every single month. So throw out the dull razor blade that you have now and make the switch to Dollar Shave Club. I promise you it's worth it. Go to dollarshaveclub.com and change the way you shave. So we have a very interesting lineup here today. Sorry for the delay. It's been a spring break. However, that doesn't mean that I haven't been paying attention to what's going on. So when we go through the breakdown today, we're going to talk about the NFL official who acknowledged the link between CTE and football, and we're going to talk about the reaction that kind of stemmed from that a little bit. And then we're going to look at the NFL's competition committee who considered eliminating chop blocks, and they were looking at ejecting players after 2 personal fouls or 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties as well. And then we're going to talk about the NFL and the NFLPA working on a deal that would strip Roger Goodell of his discipline power, and we're going to talk about why. And we're going to talk about the latest developments of the NFL looking at sending a game in China in 2018. So a lot of crazy controversial stuff here today on the Coach's Corner podcast. Excuse me. Oh, my goodness. And it's going to be a good no guest today. However, we have a lot of important things to talk about, so don't forget to follow me on Twitter @Cody Rourke NFL. Tweet me your questions, tweet me whatever you want to do, or even say, if you have an opinion you want on air, let me know, and I'll be gladly to read your tweet on air. Or if you want to be a guest on the show to talk football, talk sports, talk the world of sports, whatever it may be, let me know. Send me a direct message. Tweet me. We'll figure it out. We'll book you. We'll schedule you, and we'll get you on. I'm supposed to have my one of the guys that I reached out to on Twitter, Jeremy Nichols. We'll have him next week to discuss the latest in the NFL offseason, his move from New York to Denver, and his lifelong journey as a Denver sports fan, even though he lived in New York and in a mecca of the sports market. We'll talk about that with him next week and whatnot. So this is the Coach's Corner podcast. Strap in your seatbelt. Here we go. This is the Coach's Corner podcast, brought to you by CodyWork18.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here on the Coach's Corner podcast, and we're going to talk about a very controversial topic that's been circulating throughout the NFL and the sports media world over the last couple of years, and that's just the acknowledgement of the effect that concussions can have on athletes after football, things like that. And it's still very highly controversial because, the NFL's not paying too much attention to it. The NFL does have the concussion protocol in place for players as a thing, but I do only think that's just to appease and appeal the people who are truly trying to make change happen and to realize, concussions are changing the game in a way where we need to protect these players in the future, not necessarily by taking things away from the game of football or creating all these rules. You can never make the game of football any safer than it's normally designed to do. And the reason I'm telling you that is because it's a contact sport. You fly around at 100 miles an hour, and you know what? People are gonna get hit. And the thing is, for defensive players, over the last couple of years, the NFL has made it so offensively minded and so offensively centered that, when there is a defender who makes a big play, who has a huge hit on a guy, they throw a flag immediately. And I can tell you a perfect example is when the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts had a game this year in the regular season, and Andrew Luck threw a ball over the middle to T.Y. Hilton, who caught it, and right when he caught it, T.J. Ward blasted him, with his shoulder and knocked the living crap out of T.Y. Hilton, and then the refs immediately threw a flag. This is the problem. This is the main problem in the NFL in regards to officiating and the safety of players, is the fact that they limit what defensive players can do, because when you look at it, when it's all said and done, the NFL, for its fans, they want them to have high-scoring games. They want it to be like arena football. When you watch arena football, you got teams scoring 65 points, and you have the other team scoring 65, 55 points, so it's like a shootout, just high-scoring and no defense played. I'm telling you, if you've never played the defensive side of football, you may not understand where I'm going to be coming from here. I'm telling you this, nothing is prettier than watching defensive football at its finest, and I'm telling you why. When you can execute a game plan and you can put the players in place, you can come up with a fundamental blueprint, so to speak, to stop opposing teams from scoring and just to impose your will. You know what? You have something pretty special. I played on a very dominant defense in the ADFL for 4 years in the Grand Junction Gladiators, 4 years in a row of the top defense. And we had I can say our defensive backfield had over maybe 25 interceptions combined. And then we had over 40 sacks total combined, from our defensive ends, linebackers, and defensive tackles. It was unbelievable. It's when you can completely negate what an offense can do, you're pretty special. Because as a defense, the funny thing is, and people don't realize this, defenders do not know what play the offense is running, and that's the beauty of it. The offense always knows what play they're going to run. The receiver always knows what route he's going to run. Defensive backs play the most demanding position in the game. They have to cover guys running backwards and have to be quick and reacting to anything. Okay, you have to be very on the go with the defensive back position. So, I was blessed to play that for 4 years in the ADFL, 14 years total. My football career is long and done due to this latest ACL tear that I had, and then also 6 concussions. So, when I look at the whole concussion issue, I'm a high school football coach, and I coach in the ADFL as well. And concussions are something that still bother me to this very day. I've had 6 of them. Senior year, I had this one traumatic hit that happened to me from the side, and my neurosurgeon up in Eugene, Oregon, told me that the impact that I had, he had the video of it, the impact that I had based on the symptoms and the severity of my symptoms that I had, I suffered what we call a double impact concussion. So really, when I got hit from the side, my brain jolted to the left side of my head and then back to the right, and then stayed center after that. So I had kind of what they call a double concussion, and I struggled with symptoms of that concussion for up to 6 months. I had two concussions my junior year, and then I had 2 playing in the ADFL. One, I had it my second year, and then one I had it my third year in the ADFL. And you know what? To this day, I can openly and honestly admit that I struggle. I'm a different person, and I'm not going to say or take anything away from this game of football, because the game of football has done a lot of great things for me. It's provided me with a lot of avenues, but I coach at the high school level. I see it all the time. I see it at the ADFL level, and I've experienced it. And I see it in the NFL and college football. When you see these guys take a huge shot, a lot of times they're not okay. They're really not. They're seeing stars, and that's not a good sign. If you're seeing stars, that's not a good sign, okay? The brain is very fragile. It's the most essential part of your body. Your brain doesn't necessarily stop developing or growing until you're about 25 years old. So I'm about 21. My 22nd birthday's coming up next Thursday, March 31st. But the NFL has placed the concussion protocol in place. I think that was the only move that they decided to do in recent light of the whole concussion movie with Will Smith that pretty much chronicled the chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or what they call in short CTE, being linked to concussions in football. And we got guys, that are just, guys who've passed away, and most notably Junior Seau, who committed suicide. He was suffering from a lot of anxiety, depression, and things like that in his final days. And a lot of these guys who've killed themselves have said that they want to donate their brain so they can, help create awareness for CTE. And a lot of times when they killed themselves, they'd shoot themselves in the heart and not the head. And it's traumatic, but I can tell you this, that, my concussions have impacted who I am. I'm not going to say it's made me timid at all. It hasn't. It's just made me kind of anxious and kind of cautious, because when I look at it, I get headaches, occasionally, quite often, probably 2 or 3 times a day. And I have mood swings. I experience mood swings. There are times where the light's really sensitive. Like if I step outside, the sun's bright as it is, but there are times where I step out there and it's too bright, and it immediately affects me. I'd have to say I have a lot of impulsive reactions to a lot of things, and I get depressed easily, and it's something that I always struggle, ever since I've had concussions. And I'm just scared that one day I'm going to start losing my memory, because there are some things that I'm not good at remembering, like short-term things. It depends on the importance of it, or if I fully hear, or the expectations are set out clear in word form from anybody. If they ask me to do something, sometimes I don't remember, and I don't want to simply blame it on concussions or anything like that, but I'm saying it is linked, and the symptoms are real. And so when these NFL players and these parents want to know, can my kid play football at a young age? I'm worried. I don't think my kid should play football. I tell them, let them play football. And you got to understand this. The game is never going to change. The game is always going to be the same. They can throw in as many rules as they want to, but the fact of the matter is the game is the game. It's always game speed. You can't make adjustments, flying around at 110 miles an hour, and you have to live with what you do. I have no regrets playing football, and if I could go back and do it all over again, I promise you this, I very well probably would. And I tell the same thing to my kids that I coach, and I say you can't be scared of getting hurt playing the game of football. You can't, because if you're always thinking while you're on the field about, oh man, what if I get hurt? What if I get hit in the head? What if I get a concussion? You can't think about that stuff, because then that's going to affect your play. You're going to be timid. You're going to be timid. So you just have to play. Just let loose, go out there and play, and whatever happens, happens. But, we understand the risk putting on that helmet. So, to the original topic, the NFL, a top health and safety officer for the NFL acknowledged for the first time that there is a link between football and brain disease. And Jeff Miller, the NFL Senior Vice President for Health and Safety, was asked a question if there was a link between football and neurodegenerative diseases like CTE, and he said the answer to that question is certainly yes. He said he based his assessment on the work of Dr. Ann McKee. She's a neuropathologist out of Boston University, and she's diagnosed CTE in the brains of 176 people, and out of those 170, 90 of 94 NFL players, the disease can only be diagnosed after death. So out of 90 of those 94 NFL players that brain she studied, they had CTE, and CTE is something that right now they cannot detect while someone's alive and living. It has to be they die. So, and that's crazy. Like how do you deal with that? If you think you have CTE, there are a lot of NFL players who were concerned about it. Calvin Johnson, one reason they said that he retired is because he was concerned about having CTE one day. I think it does scare a lot of guys, because obviously life is way more important than football. You got kids, you got obligations, but you also have football. So when something like that takes you away from that element where you're comfortable and where you've made your living, like Calvin Johnson, there has to be a true concern there. So, I think the whole thing the NFL is doing is Roger Goodell has been very, very coy on his stance about concussions. He even said, I would let my own children play. And there was, we can backdate it. There was a time where he said he wouldn't let his kids play, if they wanted to at a young age. With Roger Goodell is a problem. Roger Goodell is the NFL's biggest problem right now. No joke. You look at it, he's just, it's all about money for him, and when I look at the whole regards to player safety and his whole emphasis on making the game safer, it's just a ploy. It is an absolute ploy just to satisfy the ears of people who hear it. And I'm going to tell you this, Roger Goodell has never ever played the game of football in his life. As Richard Sherman said, he's just a suit. So he shouldn't be changing the rules. He shouldn't be changing the game because he's never played it. He doesn't understand what it's like. He doesn't understand the emotions you feel as a player. He's just a businessman. So he's working out there. He's got his whole business mindset. For him, it's all about money. He preaches that, we want to keep our players safe, da-da-da-da-da. But you know what he does? He schedules Thursday night football games for teams who just played on a Sunday. So they have one day off on a Monday. They practice Tuesday, Wednesday, guess what? Game on Thursday. That is not safe. That is not safe for anybody, and that leads to injuries. That leads to concussions. That leads to ACL tears. That leads to broken bones, whatever it may be. And the reason for that is because, your body can't handle too much of that trauma and stress that you receive and just short little turnaround time to play a damn game. And Roger Goodell, he wants to play games in Mexico City. He wants to play games in China, for crying out loud. Roger Goodell doesn't understand that, the turnaround, the jet lag, you got to fly all the way to China. You got to fly all the way to London. You got to, I wouldn't say you wouldn't necessarily have too much lag flying to Mexico City, but there are other risk factors in there. And certainly Roger Goodell, I kind of, after watching Concussion, I did a little bit of research on him and how he was when Dr. Bennett Omalu was trying to create awareness about CTE and concussions and how Roger Goodell was. It's ridiculous. And then Jerry Jones, you got this jackass coming on the air, the national media saying, there is no link between football and CTE. Jerry Jones is the most delusional geriatric guy I've ever seen in the world of sports, period. I don't know who's worse, him or Lou Holtz, but it's pretty close. Jerry Jones has no place whatsoever in talking about football and having CTE. I think it's very disrespectful for Roger Goodell and guys like Jerry Jones to insinuate that, there is no link between football and brain disease, no matter how many hits you take to the head. Let's take a look at the WWE, for example. Many guys get concussions, most notably Chris Benoit ended up killing his wife, killing his youngest son, and then killing himself. And a lot of times, people linked it to him having taken so many shots to the head over his career wrestling for pro wrestling. It may be fake, but you know what? The bumps are real, and you really do get hurt sometimes. You really do get hit in the head a little too many times, and that led to that. So and that's scary. That's absolutely scary. So, we still got Roger Goodell denying that, there's no link to football and having CTE. And Roger Goodell has completely failed the NFL players. He's failed the families of those who've passed away, who've killed themselves due to thinking that they had CTE or because they had CTE, and a lot of head trauma. And so for that, I see a lot of backpedaling by Roger Goodell, and realistically, that's going to lead me to our next topic here in a little bit, where we're going to talk about the NFL. And the NFL Players Association are looking to strike a deal that would strip Roger Goodell of his discipline abilities to discipline players, and we're going to discuss that and much more here in a little bit. But on the topic of Roger Goodell and the NFL, one thing I do want to talk about is the recent rule changes that have happened, and I'm going to give you a couple here because they're pretty imperative ones. And the NFL has officially eliminated chop blocks. They've deemed them illegal, so teams, offensive linemen can no longer chop block opposing defensive players. It will be a 15-yard flag. Could be it will be a personal foul, which plays into the next rule that they announced that the NFL is looking into. If a player gets 2 personal fouls or 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, they will be ejected from the game. So when I look at that, I'm still not happy about it. I understand if there's a guy that does a lot of, dirty play, and the perfect example we can look at is Odell Beckham Jr. and Josh Norman last year when the Giants took on the Panthers and they had that skirmish. That's something right there where, a guy should have been kicked out, but they weren't, and that's the sad thing about it. So the NFL wants to introduce this, and the chop block rule will be in effect permanently. However, the 2-foul ejection rule is going to be a 1-year experiment, and the NFL also, speaking of 1-year experiments, after moving the ball to the 33 for PATs, they've moved it to the 15-yard line for PATs. And that's going to be another year-long trial as well. So, a lot of things like that, but the NFL, they're trying to change the game, and a lot of times that it doesn't really bode well. And that's what led to Richard Sherman this week, calling out Roger Goodell for saying, he's never played the game of football in his life, but yet he has all these changes he wants to make to it. It kind of scares me, because I'm scared looking at maybe 10 years from now, the NFL is going to have teams in the United States and in different countries across the pond, and in Europe and the UK and China. I think there's going to be teams there, and I don't want that to happen. But with Roger Goodell at the helm, the NFL is going to fail. And we'll get into that a little later as soon as we get into that topic. But, it's just sad to see. And the NFL proposed that they want to play a game in China in 2018, and that the China market could be big. Let me tell you this, Roger Goodell, people in China don't give a shit about football. They don't give a shit about it. If they have laws and dictator-like policies where, households can only be limited to having 1 child, what makes you think they're going to care about the NFL and American football? I'm telling you this, London, the people in the UK don't even care about American football. All they care about is their soccer and what they call football. They really don't. And I got friends over in the UK, and they said the majority consensus is a lot of them don't pay attention to the NFL. They could care less about the NFL, but they go to the NFL games when they come over because it's something new. But it's really nothing. And I asked them, I said, well, what do you prefer between the two? Did you like the American football games when the NFL came over to London to play? And then how did you like it compared to soccer? And they said, I like soccer. We're more passionate about soccer and football over here than we are American football. And I can completely understand that. However, Roger Goodell, for him, it's all about money and expanding his pockets. And for some reason, one thing that I want to touch base on with this, why I think Roger Goodell is the worst thing to ever happen to the NFL, is he makes a base salary of $3 million a year. Okay, and his bonus that he received in 2015 was $23 million. How do you go from making a base salary of $3 million to making a bonus to $23 to $25 million. And I'm telling you why. It's because of all the disciplinary and all the fines he sent out. He fined players for whatever they did, and he pockets that. I have no respect for Roger Goodell. I think he's a complete sham. He's ruined the game of football. He's ruining it, and I'm scared to see where it's going to be. If Roger Goodell is still the commissioner of the NFL in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm truly scared for what the game is going to be like here in the future. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back in just a moment to talk about Roger Goodell, the NFLPA, stripping him of his ability to discipline players. We're going to talk about that and much more in just a moment when we return. You've been listening to the Coach's Corner podcast here on CodyRourke18.com. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at CodyRourkeNFL and enjoy the rest of your show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Coach's Corner podcast, and we're going to continue our discussion that we last had involving Roger Goodell. Apparently, this whole show has been about Roger Goodell today. I apologize for that. Not too much news going on in the NFL. Can't wait for the draft. We're going to start doing some mock drafts, and we're going to get ready for the draft, which is coming up on us very quickly. I'm very excited to talk about it here soon, so we'll talk about that next week. So let's talk about the final segment of the show today, and that is looking at Roger Goodell's role as the commissioner of the NFL and his history of disciplining players, and what good has really come from it. And that's the question I ask you. I don't really think anything good has really come from it at all. Under the current collective bargaining agreement, the NFL and the NFL Players Association are making progress toward a deal that would strip Roger Goodell of his disciplinary powers when it comes to off-the-field infractions by players. NFLPA Executive Director Demarius Smith was talking about that and said that, there have been multiple proposals and talks about changes to the personnel conducted policy since October, and they have traded proposals, but nothing has really happened yet as of late. We got news of this story probably last week of the NFL looking to find a way to remove Roger Goodell of his ability to discipline players for any off-field infractions. So we look at the Adrian Peterson and Ray Rice situations. How the NFL Players Association wants it to be is that there's a council. There's an actual discipline council that would be created, a team that players would go to. And this could involve former NFL players. This could involve lawyers as well. But they want to take it away from the courtroom setting, which I completely understand. And I actually would be a big fan and supporter of that, because when we look at it, I don't think disciplining a player for something he did on the off the field should be taken to a courtroom to determine what his NFL on the field punishment will be. Okay, I don't think that's really I think the grounds for that are very unnecessary, and Roger Goodell has had an issue with this. And a lot of times people are wondering, what does Roger Goodell think about this? I really don't think that he's too much of it. He was on the radio with Mike and Mike probably, let me see, a few months back, and they were asking him, they said, they asked him, would you be open to changing your role when it comes to the process for disciplining the league's players for any off-the-field incidents? And he said, yeah. He said, I've always kind of welcomed an approach and a change to the current process that we have. He says that he is open to changing his role and that it's become extremely time-consuming and that he has to be focused on other issues. So he says that he's discussed this very issue with owners in the NFL, and then he says that the NFL needs a better discipline system, suggesting that, the league could institute a designated discipline system or a panel, like I was talking about, a council. And he went on, quote, by saying, I want to get a better discipline situation. I've had discussions with the players union. The courts are not where we should be having these discussions. And this all comes after the judge, Richard Berman, he's the district judge that was overlooking the Tom Brady suspension that he had for 4 games for Deflategate. He criticized Roger Goodell, saying it's industrial justice, which really is kind of out of bounds for Roger Goodell's area to suspend players for those kind of reasons, those kind of incidents. So realistically, when I look at it, I don't think anything's going to happen in the NFL this year regarding that. However, I do think maybe in the next 2 to 4 years that we're going to see a change in the way that discipline is handled by the NFL and its workers. So more importantly, I'm looking at Roger Goodell eventually relieving himself of his powers to discipline players for any off-the-field incidents, and I expect that there's going to be some sort of panel, maybe even former NFL players, and maybe a lawyer or something. I have no idea how it would look, but have these public figures on that panel, have the players go and present their best case to these players, why they should appeal or what punishment they deserve. What punishment do these players deserve for whatever infractions they get. The NFL, there's a lot of guys who get caught up in off-season trouble. I think the off-season is a lot of the bad time for a lot of these players, especially players who are not used to having unstructured time. And really relieving Roger Goodell of his ability to collect money off players. As I said, Roger Goodell makes a base salary of $3 million per year, and he magically this year in 2015 and 2016 made a $25 million bonus. And I really don't understand what from. And a lot of times, we look at it, and a lot of speculation is he, pretty much whenever Roger Goodell finds players for things that they do, he pockets that money because he's the judge, the jury, the executioner in the NFL. And I do believe that sets a very bad precedent. Roger Goodell did not found the NFL. He's not the CEO of the NFL, nor will he ever be. He is the commissioner of the NFL. He has a responsibility to uphold the business model for the NFL in a way that is protecting and valuing the safety of its players, of his employees, workers, coaches, whatever it may be, upholding the image of the NFL for the most prestigious name that it is. The NFL is highly prestigious. It's something that a lot of people look at and associate with commonly. For me, it's a 365 day thing a year. I analyze football. I analyze the NFL 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. That's why social media has helped do that even more with providing me with alerts. Roger Goodell simply cannot run a league and be the judge, be the jury, and be the executioner for the league. He's got to give up some of his power. He's got to spread it up, to proper channels with different guys. Like I said, I think having a panel of former NFL players where, if you have a player who has an infraction or maybe a DUI, he has to go present and sit and listen to what this panel of former NFL players, preferably players who have had clean records and have never been in trouble, and let them determine what the punishment will be for this player and if it's justified or not. I think that would go a long way. Dante Stallworth, for example, even said that would be even a really great idea. But you have to take some of the power out of Roger Goodell's hands because he simply has too much of it. And as we saw with the whole concussion issue, he's very coy on it. He avoids questions. He makes people out to look bad. And I lost a lot of respect for him over the years. Obviously, what he's done, I think business-minded, which, the NFL is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. However, your employees are sacrificing their lives, their bodies, their livelihood, their futures just to put money in the pockets of Roger Goodell and to entertain fans all around the world. So eliminate Thursday Night Football. Don't go overseas. The other overseas teams do not care about NFL football, nor will they ever. It's just another money ploy for Roger Goodell to make more money, to be, I'm the biggest guy here. Yet the NFL has a lot of skeletons in the closet, and Roger Goodell happens to be one of the most greediest owners in all of sports. I really love how Adam Silver is with the NBA. He was the commissioner of the NBA. When they had David Stern, it was terrible. It was absolutely terribly ran. You could tell it seemed like a little dictatorship in the NBA when David Stern was running. And then as soon as Adam Silver took over for David Stern, Adam Silver made it more player-centered, more player safety-based. What's the best for the NBA? What's the best interest for the players and their safety? And also, what's going to be in the best interest for the fans? And he's really appealed to that. He's really reached out, and he's kind of pleased all three aspects, coaches, players, and fans. And he's done a really great job, in my opinion, of monitoring the NBA, handing out suspensions, discipline. I don't think he even does the discipline. He has a panel of guys who go in and listen. And they have a whole really amazing creative process. In the NBA, it may be a smaller market compared to the NFL. However, I think they do have a system in place that the NFL could copy to find some success in terms of power and distributing distributing the wealth a little bit. I wouldn't say necessarily for money, but evening up the power. Don't make Roger Goodell the most powerful guy in the NFL, because that's when things happen. That's when things get, a little greedy and guys get corrupt. And I already think Roger Goodell, he's got a money first mentality. He's never played the game of football. He doesn't understand it. He's a suit. Like Richard Sherman said, he's a suit. He's never played. He doesn't know how us players feel. He doesn't know what it's like to put on that helmet, to get that adrenaline rush, to go out there and hit people, to make plays, to bleed, to sweat, to get hurt, and to leave it all out there on the field. He doesn't understand that, and he never will. So why are we going to give him all the power to determine how the game should be played for the future, for our kids, for the NFL moving forward? So that's my vent. We will be back next week for another edition of the Coach's Corner podcast. Man, Jeremy Nichols, we're going to have Derek Favretto. We're going to talk about the NFL draft. We're going to talk about, with Jeremy Nichols, we're going to talk about his move from New York City to Denver and how he's always been a Denver sports fan, even while living in the Mecca of New York, and essentially the market there, the New York Giants, New York Jets, the New York Knicks. The market over there for sports is unbelievable. But he's always been a Denver fan, Denver Broncos, Denver Nuggets. So we're going to talk to him about that, his music career, and much, much more next week when we return on the Coach's Corner podcast. This is Cody Rourke. Have a great night. The following episode is available for download right now on CodyRourke18.com. In the right-hand corner of the Coach's Corner podcast section, click on the link and it'll take you to past and present episodes of the Coach's Corner podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at CodyRourke18 and at Coach's Co Podcast. Tweet us, send us anything you want, and we may be on the show.